Hello, and welcome back. This video is about connecting the tower actions to the tower that owns it. And a special thanks to all my supporters. Thank you for helping me help others. So the first thing we're going to do is create another enum. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, rename this to Tower Actions. Get rid of these lines and add build turret, build ballista, build catapult, build cannon, and those are the 4 weapon types from the Kenny's Tower Defense Asset Pack. And also want to upgrade and breakdown. That could also be destroy or refund or sell or whatever, but that's getting rid of a tower. With that done, I'm just going to hit F5 and see you in the editor. All right, so back in the editor, we have our UI folder here with our Tower Actions blueprint and widget blueprint. So in our blueprint here, we're going to talk a little bit about coupling. Coupling is one of those things that as programmers we're always taught, you don't want to tightly couple 2 classes, or in this case blueprints, or whatnot. However, the Tower Actions blueprint is specifically created to host a Tower Actions widget. So those 2 are tightly coupled. There's not really any way to get around that. And in that case, if you want to go from the Tower Actions blueprint to the widget, that's easy enough because it's right here. You can drag this out. Oops. Click, drag, Control, or hold Control and drop that. So this is the widget component, which is a little different than the widget blueprint. So to get the widget blueprint from it, then you want to call get user widget object, and then that will be the widget blueprint. So that's the one that we can then cast to WBP Tower Actions. So this connection will always exist. Our WBP Tower Actions doesn't have a connection back to this blueprint, which we don't strictly need for here, but we're going to do something similar to add those actions, or add the reactions to those actions. Now, when our tower base creates the BP tower actions, we send along self as the owner in that spawn actor section. So with that, then we can use get owner, and that will give us our tower base. So if we cast this to BP tower base, this will work. So then we effectively have this variable here that we can call tower base functions on, and that would work. However, going back to the coupling thing, that means that our tower actions blueprint here is then coupled to the tower base. Now that's not really a big issue because the tower actions is only ever created by the tower base, so we kind of have our one-on-one relationship anyways. But if we wanted this tower actions blueprint to be usable elsewhere in the future, we don't really want that coupling. So one of the ways to get around that coupling is to use an interface instead. So let's go ahead and do that. So in our blueprints folder, I'm going to right click, go to blueprint, blueprint interface. I'm going to call this BPI underscore tower action. And when you open this up, it immediately wants you to create a function because that's part of the interface. So here we'll have on tower action. And this is going to take as an input our newly created enum. We'll call that tower action. This will be our tower actions enum. So now that we have that interface set up, and I hit compile twice for some reason, I can close that, and then instead of casting our owner to our tower base, we can cast it to our interface. The end result will be the same, but it's a little less coupled. So with that done, then we can call a function on our WBP tower actions to initialize some stuff. I'm just going to compile this. I'll go into that widget blueprint. So in here we have our button actions for top, left, right, and bottom. These are all variables. So if we want to set up on-click events for each of these, there's a few ways to do it. One way is that we have our tower actions here. we could get our button action up, button action top, and then we could call bind event to onClicked in this case. If we were to do that, we need that to be outside of a function. It needs to be the event graph because creating events inside functions just doesn't work. So in here we could create an event and then create a matching function or event for it. Or instead of create event, we can drag this off and add custom event, name that, and then call, whatever we want there. So this is one way to get events added to those buttons. And since we're in our BP Tower Actions, it's coupled to our WBP Tower Actions. So this, I think this is fine. I prefer to have our actual functionality in the widget itself. And since we have our interface here, we want to hook that all up. So I'm going to create a function in our widget. So the function here will be Init Actions. The purpose here is to take a number of inputs. So the first one will be the Tower Action interface we created. And I can just call this the same, BPI Tower Action. And along with trying to make our things less coupled, we also want to make them more generic so that they support a design that can be used in multiple areas and in multiple ways. So with that in mind here, we also want to include 4 more inputs. So this will be Tower Action, top. This will be type E Tower Actions. And then we'll make 3 more for the other directions. We have left, right, and bottom. And then for each of these, we just want to promote them to a variable. I like to remove the spaces. And the purpose of doing all that is so that when we go into our designer and we have each of our buttons, we can scroll down here, hit onClicked. We'll do that for each of them. And for each of these, we are just getting our BPI Tower Action as a variable that is an interface. You can see that there's no actual validated get, so if we wanted to, we can call isValidInterface. And use that to call our Tower Action function. For the appropriate action versus button. And then we can duplicate that for each of these. And then update the variable being sent. So with that function created, then we can call it from our WPP Tower Actions variable here, which is Init Actions. We're sending along this interface. And we could just set all these up to the turret, ballista, catapult, and I just realized I put built instead of build, cannon. But instead, these are variables that should actually be sent from the tower interaction itself. So I'm also going to promote these two variables. We'll get all these down here. And in the case of these variables, we want them all to be expose on spawn. When you click that and then compile, it will tell you here it's marked as expose on spawn, but not instance editable, and we want that. So for each of these, we want instance editable and expose on spawn. And now this is basically just data driven inside here based on the tower we actually create. So that BP Tower Actions is created when we select a tower, which is right here. We're spawning the Tower Actions. You can see that those expose on spawn are not here. We just want to right click this, refresh nodes, and there they are. Now these will be variables sometime in the future, but this time for now we can just set them all like that. I don't like typos like this, so I'm going to pause the video, go and correct that, and relaunch the editor. And with that corrected, you can see that because of the way Unreal saves enums, it is complaining that there's an undefined value here. So we just click that, click build cannon instead, compile, all good. In your case, I assume you would have typed build correctly. So with that done, the last thing we want to ensure that we are doing is that our tower base, which is being cast to our interface, actually implements that interface. So the way to do that is to go in class settings here. We have implemented interfaces. We click add, find our interface. When we click this over on the left, interfaces will have been added and the relevant functions. So we can right click this, implement event, or double click it, we'll do the same thing. This will create an event, however you do have the option of converting it to a function as well. For now, all we're going to do is print out the action that's being sent. So with that done, we can go in, we select a tower, click a button that said build turret, build ballista, build catapult, and lastly, build, not build, cannon. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video and would like to see more, you know what to do. And if you would like to support this channel, watch these videos 2 weeks early, or just want to download the project files, you can do so through my Patreon linked below.